Hello everyone and welcome. This is H. Potter speaking. We have handpicked a wonderful story for today. What if the Forbidden Forest chose Harry at age 4 and every magical creature swore loyalty to him? New videos drop regularly, so subscribe and hit the bell to stay updated. And don't forget to like if you enjoy the story. Shall we begin? Here goes. Chapter 1, The Forest Awakens. Harry's tiny legs pumped harder than they ever had before. Behind him, Uncle Vernon's angry shouts faded as he plunged deeper into the woods. His heart hammered against his ribs, and his breath came in ragged gasps. 4-year-old Harry Potter wasn't supposed to wander off during the Dursleys' rare countryside picnic, but when Dudley had pushed him face-first into the mud and Vernon had yanked him up by his arm hard enough to leave finger-shaped bruises, something inside Harry snapped. "Boy! Get back here!" Vernon's distant bellow echoed through the trees. Harry didn't look back. He'd rather face whatever lived in these woods than return to his uncle's purple-faced rage. Blood trickled from his split lip where Dudley had hit him earlier, and his glasses sat crooked on his nose, held together by faded tape. The shouts grew fainter until all Harry could hear was the crunch of leaves under his two big hand-me-down sneakers and his own panicked breathing. Sunlight filtered through the canopy above, dappling the forest floor with patches of gold. He slowed to a walk, chest heaving. "I'm lost," he whispered to himself, the reality of his situation sinking in. The woods seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions. Harry bit his lip to keep from crying. The Dursleys had always told him boys shouldn't cry, especially freakish boys like him. A soft whimpering sound caught his attention. Harry froze, listening. It came again, a pained, animal cry from behind a fallen log a few feet away. Curiosity overrode his fear, and he crept forward. A small red fox lay on its side, blood matting the fur around its right front paw. A cruel metal trap had clamped around the limb, and the fox's eyes were glazed with pain as it struggled weakly. "Hey there," Harry whispered, kneeling beside the injured animal. "Don't be scared." The fox bared its teeth, but something in its eyes shifted when it looked at Harry, recognition, almost. It stopped struggling. "That looks really bad," Harry said, his small hands hovering uncertainly over the trap. "I wish I could help you." Without thinking, he reached out to touch the metal contraption. The moment his fingers made contact, a strange warmth flooded through him, starting at his chest and flowing down his arms. The sensation wasn't unfamiliar. Weird things sometimes happened around Harry when he was scared or upset. Aunt Petunia called it his freakishness. The metal trap suddenly glowed red-hot. Harry gasped but couldn't pull his hands away. Instead of burning him, the metal softened and warped, the jaws of the trap springing open and releasing the fox's injured paw. "Wow," Harry breathed. But he wasn't done. The warmth inside him surged again, and this time it flowed directly into the fox. The animal went completely still as the wound on its leg began to close. Torn flesh knitted together, blood stopped flowing, and even the fur began to regrow over the injury. Harry sat back on his heels, suddenly exhausted. "There you go," he said with a tired smile. "All better now." The fox stood cautiously, testing its weight on the healed paw. It looked at Harry with intelligent eyes that seemed almost grateful. Then, to Harry's surprise, it bowed its head low to the ground before him. "You're welcome," Harry said, bewildered by the human-like gesture. The fox raised its head, ears perked forward, and then darted away into the underbrush. Harry stayed where he was, too tired to move. He'd done strange things before, turned his teacher's wig blue, regrown his hair overnight after a horrible haircut, but he'd never healed anything. It felt different. Better. As Harry sat catching his breath, he didn't notice the subtle changes happening around him. Flowers near his feet suddenly bloomed out of season. The breeze stilled. Birds stopped singing. The forest itself seemed to be holding its breath. Deep beneath the soil, ancient roots stirred. Magic, wild and untamed, rippled outward from the small clearing where a boy with a lightning-shaped scar had performed an act of pure compassion. Harry had no way of knowing that his simple act of kindness had awakened something that had slumbered for centuries. No way of knowing that miles away, in another part of this same magical forest that encircled Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, beings of all kinds suddenly raised their heads, sensing a change in the very fabric of their world. No way of knowing that his life was about to change forever. Firenze galloped through the ancient paths of the Forbidden Forest, his hooves barely making a sound on the soft earth. The stars had spoken to him last night, something unprecedented was happening. The Centaur Elder had lived over 100 years, but he'd never felt the forest magic stir like this. He followed the pull of power, moving deeper into a section of the forest that few ventured into, the Nexus, where the magical boundaries thinned and connected distant parts of the forest across Britain. The magic grew stronger with each stride until he broke through into a small clearing. And there, sleeping peacefully against the trunk of an ancient oak, was a small human child. Firenze approached cautiously. Human children did not wander into the Nexus. It should have been impossible. Yet there the boy was, glasses askew on his face, oversized clothes dirty and torn, looking impossibly fragile among the ancient trees. The centaur knelt to examine the child more closely and froze when he saw the lightning-shaped scar on the boy's forehead. "Harry Potter," he whispered. The stars spoke truly. As if hearing his name, the child stirred. Green eyes blinked open, widening in shock at the sight of Firenze. You're half horse." Harry gasped, scrambling to sit upright. "I am a centaur," Firenze corrected gently. "My name is Firenze. And you are Harry Potter." Harry's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "How do you know my name?" "The stars have spoken of you. And now the forest has chosen you." "The forest?" Harry looked around in confusion. "What do you mean? I just got lost running from my uncle." Firenze studied the small boy. The bruises on his arms, the split lip, the haunted look in his eyes, all told a story that made the centaur's blood boil. But there would be time for that later. "You healed a fox today, did you not?" Harry nodded slowly. "It was stuck in a trap. I didn't mean to do anything weird. It just happened. Magic happened, young one. Your magic." And the forest responded. Firenze gestured around them. For the first time, Harry noticed the flowers blooming around where he sat, the unusual quiet, the way the sunlight seemed to focus directly on their clearing. "I did that," he whispered. "You awakened something ancient. Something that has slept for many generations of your kind." Firenze extended his hand. "Come. There are others who must meet you. A council has been called." Harry hesitated. "I should go back. Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon will be really angry if I don't." "You shall return to them before nightfall," Firenze assured him. "But first, you must understand what has happened here today." "What is beginning?" Curiosity won out over fear. Harry took the centaur's hand and gasped as Firenze swung him up onto his back. "Hold tight," the centaur instructed, and then they were flying through the forest, faster than Harry had ever moved in his life. He laughed despite himself, the wind rushing through his hair, the sensation of Firenze's powerful muscles moving beneath him unlike anything he'd ever experienced. They traveled deeper into the forest, the trees growing older and more gnarled. Harry noticed other creatures watching from the shadows, small, twiggy beings peering from tree hollows, massive spiders observing from webs strung between branches, creatures that looked like horses but with spiral horns protruding from their foreheads. Finally, they arrived at an enormous clearing dominated by a circle of standing stones. In the center bubbled a small spring, its waters glowing with an unearthly blue light. And gathered around the clearing was the most extraordinary assembly Harry had ever seen. Centaurs of various colors and ages stood in a loose semicircle. Beside them, the horned horse creatures, unicorns, Harry realized with a shock, pawed the ground nervously. Giant spiders clicked their pincers from the edges of the clearing. Tiny winged humanoids flitted through the air. Creatures Harry had no names for watched from the shadows. Firenze trotted to the center of the gathering and knelt to allow Harry to slide from his back. The boy stood frozen, overwhelmed by dozens of eyes fixed upon him. "I have brought him," Firenze announced. "The human child who awakened the heart spring. Harry Potter, the boy who lived." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. One centaur, older than Firenze with a white-streaked dark coat, stepped forward frowning. "You bring a human foal into our most sacred place, Firenze. Have you lost your mind?" "You felt the awakening, Bane," Firenze replied calmly. "We all did. The forest has been waiting." Harry shrank back against Firenze's flank. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't mean to do anything wrong." An ancient female centaur with silver hair and coat stepped forward. "Child, you have done nothing wrong. But you have done something momentous." She turned to address the gathering. "For those who do not know the prophecies, I shall speak them now. When Mars and Venus align in the seventh house, a child marked by lightning shall awaken the slumbering heart. The forest shall choose its champion, and a bridge between worlds shall form." She pointed to the night sky visible through a break in the canopy, where two bright planets hung close together. "The alignment is upon us. The child bears the mark." She gestured to Harry's scar. "And today, the heart spring stirred for the first time in 5 centuries when this boy performed an act of healing magic within the nexus." A massive spider clicked forward, and Harry had to fight the urge to run. "Why this human child?" the spider asked, its voice surprisingly soft despite its fearsome appearance. "Why not one of our own?" "The prophecy speaks of a bridge between worlds," the elderly centaur replied. "Only one who belongs to both the human realm and ours can fulfill that role." "I don't understand," Harry said, finding his voice. "I'm just Harry. Just a boy. I live with my aunt and uncle because my parents died in a car crash. There's nothing special about me." A ripple of surprise passed through the gathering. Firenze knelt beside Harry. "Is that what you were told?" he asked gently. "That your parents died in a car crash?" Harry nodded uncertainly. "Young one," said Firenze, "your parents were murdered by a dark wizard. You survived a killing curse that should have been impossible to survive. That is how you got that scar. You are famous in the wizarding world, a world your aunt and uncle have clearly hidden from you." Harry's world tilted sideways. "Wizarding world? My parents were wizards. Your father was a wizard. Your mother a witch. And you, Harry Potter, are a wizard too. But..." Harry's mind raced, connecting dots. The strange occurrences. The freakishness his aunt and uncle punished him for. The odd reactions of strangers who sometimes seemed to recognize him on the street. "Why wouldn't they tell me?" "That is a question for another time," the elderly female centaur said. "Now we must determine if you are truly the one the forest has chosen." She gestured toward the glowing spring. "This is the heart spring, the oldest magic in this forest. If you are indeed the one, the spring will recognize you." "What do I need to do?" Harry asked. "Approach the spring," she instructed. "If it accepts you, we shall proceed with the bonding." Harry took a deep breath and walked toward the bubbling blue water. The entire clearing fell silent. Even the forest itself seemed to hold its breath. As he neared the spring, the glow intensified, pulsing like a heartbeat. Harry knelt at the edge of the small pool. The water sparkled with an inner light that reminded him of the night sky. He reached out hesitantly, his fingertips hovering above the surface. "May I?" he asked, unsure who or what he was asking permission from. The water leapt up to meet his fingers. The moment contact was made, light exploded from the spring, shooting upward in a pillar of blue fire that engulfed Harry but didn't burn. Inside the column of light, Harry felt the forest, every tree, every creature, every root and branch and leaf. He felt their joy and sorrow, their hopes and fears, their ancient wisdom and wild magic. And they felt him, his loneliness, his courage, his compassion, his untapped power. When the light receded, Harry remained kneeling, tears streaming down his face at the beauty of what he'd experienced. Around the clearing, every flower, every plant suddenly bloomed in a wave of vibrant color, regardless of season. A soft aurora danced in the air above the stones. "The forest has spoken," the elderly centaur announced solemnly. "Harry Potter is the chosen of the forest." The unicorns bowed their heads. The spiders clicked their pincers together in a strange rhythm. The tiny winged creatures darted in patterns of celebration. Firenze stepped forward. The ritual must be completed. The bond must be sealed. Harry stood on shaky legs. "What does that mean?" "A bond of blood freely given," the elderly centaur explained. "Your blood must mix with the waters of the heart spring." A beautiful unicorn with a coat like moonlight stepped forward, lowering its horn. Harry instinctively backed away. "Do not fear," Firenze said. "Karina will not harm you. Her horn can pierce your skin with no pain, and her magic will ensure the wound heals instantly afterward." Harry swallowed hard but nodded. He extended his palm toward the unicorn. Karina delicately touched the tip of her spiral horn to the center of his hand. True to Firenze's word, Harry felt only a slight pressure as the horn pierced his skin, and 3 drops of blood welled up. The unicorn stepped back, and Harry knelt at the spring again, letting the blood drip into the glowing water. The moment his blood touched the surface, the water flashed golden. The light spread through the clearing along underground roots and streams, illuminating a vast network that connected everything in the forest. Power surged up through Harry's feet, racing through his small body. Knowledge flooded his mind, languages he'd never heard, magic he'd never imagined, secrets of the forest and its inhabitants. For a moment, he understood everything. Then the golden light faded, leaving Harry gasping on his hands and knees. The cut on his palm had vanished without a trace. "It is done," the elderly centaur announced. "Harry Potter is now heartbound to the forest. Its magic is his magic. Its wisdom is his wisdom. Its creatures are his family." Harry looked up, overwhelmed. "What does this mean? What am I supposed to do?" Firenze helped Harry to his feet. "It means, young one, that you have become something unique, a human child with the forest's blessing. You will learn our ways, our magic. And someday, you will be the bridge between our world and yours." "But I still have to go back to the Dursleys," Harry said quietly. "They're my only family." The centaurs exchanged glances. "For now, yes," Firenze said carefully. "There are protections around you that require you to call their home your own. But you need not spend all your time there." "I don't understand." The elderly female centaur stepped forward. "I am Epona, keeper of centaur knowledge. What Firenze means is that the forest can create paths, ways for you to travel between your human dwelling and these woods, regardless of distance." Harry's eyes widened. "I could come here from Privet Drive?" "With training, yes," Epona confirmed. "The forest has claimed you. It will find ways to bring you home." Home. The word resonated in Harry's chest. He'd never felt at home at the Dursleys. But here, surrounded by these strange creatures who seemed to accept him without question, he felt a sense of belonging he'd never experienced before. "When can I start learning?" he asked eagerly. Bane snorted. "The human foal is presumptuous. The human foal is enthusiastic," Firenze countered with a smile. "And he has much to learn." "Tonight," Epona decided. "We will begin tonight. But first, Firenze must return you to the human world before you are missed too greatly." Harry's shoulders slumped in disappointment. "Don't worry, young one," Firenze said. "The sun has barely moved in the sky. Time flows differently here in the Nexus. What felt like hours to you has been mere minutes in the outside world." Hope surged in Harry's chest. "So I can come back tonight?" "Tonight," Firenze confirmed, kneeling so Harry could climb onto his back. When the moon rises, think of the forest. Your blood now carries its essence. It will guide you back. As Firenze carried him away from the clearing, Harry looked back at the assembly of magical beings, his new family. For the first time in his life, he felt excitement about the future. Vernon Dursley's face was an alarming shade of purple when Firenze left Harry at the edge of the picnic area. "Boy!" Vernon bellowed, stomping toward him. "Where have you been?" "Wandering off, worrying your aunt. After all we do for you." Harry fought the urge to run back into the forest. "Sorry, Uncle Vernon. I got lost." Vernon grabbed Harry's arm roughly, his sausage-like fingers digging into the same bruises he'd left earlier. "Lost? Lost? You deliberately ran away. No meals for the rest of the weekend, and straight into the cupboard when we get home." As Vernon dragged him toward the car, Harry caught a glimpse of movement at the forest's edge. A fox, the same fox he'd healed, watched from the shadows. Its eyes met Harry's, and somehow, he knew everything would be all right. For the first time, Harry didn't feel alone. That night, locked in his cupboard under the stairs, Harry waited until the house grew quiet. The Dursleys had indeed sent him to bed without dinner, but Harry was too excited to feel hungry. Moonlight filtered through the small vent in his cupboard door. Harry closed his eyes and thought of the forest, the smell of earth and leaves, the sound of the heart spring bubbling, the feeling of belonging. Warmth spread through his chest, down his arms, into his fingers. When he opened his eyes, a thin golden thread shimmered in the air before him, visible only to his eyes. It passed straight through the cupboard door, beckoning him to follow. But how? The door was locked from the outside. As if in response to his question, the golden thread brightened. Harry felt a tugging sensation in his chest and suddenly found himself dissolving into golden mist. His physical form dissipated, flowing through the cracks around the cupboard door, following the shimmering thread. The sensation was strange but not frightening, like being everywhere and nowhere at once. He flowed through the Dursleys' house, out through a partially open window, and streamed across the night sky following the golden thread. Miles flew by beneath him, landscapes blurring together until suddenly he was in the forest clearing again, his body reforming before the heart spring. Firenze waited beside it, looking unsurprised. "You found your way back quickly," the centaur observed. "The forest's magic flows strongly in you." Harry looked down at his hands in wonder. "What just happened? How did I get here?" "The forest created a pathway for you," Firenze explained. "Your body temporarily became one with its magic, allowing you to travel great distances. Few beings can use the forest paths so naturally." "Will I always be able to do that?" Harry asked. "With practice, you will master it," Firenze assured him. "Now come. Your first lessons await." Over the next 6 years, Harry lived a double life. By day, he was the Dursleys' unwanted nephew, cooking, cleaning, enduring Dudley's bullying and his aunt and uncle's neglect. But by night, he was the forest's chosen, learning the ancient magic and wisdom of the woodland realm. The centaurs taught him astronomy and prophecy. Harry learned to read the stars, to understand the movements of planets and how they influenced magic on Earth. Epona showed him how to interpret visions in the Heart Springs waters. "Focus, Harry," she instructed one night when he was 7, standing beside the glowing pool. "The water can show you many things, the past, possible futures, distant events. But you must learn to direct its visions." Harry stared into the shimmering blue depths, concentrating on his parents' faces, faces he knew only from brief glimpses in the spring's previous visions. The water clouded, then cleared to show a young couple dancing in autumn leaves. The man had Harry's unruly black hair and glasses. The woman had striking green eyes, his eyes. They looked happy, in love, twirling as leaves swirled around them. "Mom," Harry whispered. "Dad." The vision shifted, showing the same couple holding a baby, looking worried as they spoke with an elderly wizard with a long silver beard. Albus Dumbledore, Epona identified. The human wizard who placed you with your relatives. Harry watched, transfixed, as silent scenes from his parents' lives played out before him. Their wedding. His birth. Fragments of a life cut short. Then darkness swirled in the pool, and a pale, snake-like face emerged, noseless, with red eyes that burned with hatred. Harry jerked back from the spring. Who was that? The dark wizard who killed your parents, Epona said gravely. The one humans fear to name, Voldemort. He doesn't look human, Harry observed. Dark magic corrupted him, body and soul, Epona explained. Remember this, young one, magic responds to intention. Use it for healing, for growth, for protection, and it strengthens your spirit. Use it for dominion, for pain, for power alone, and it will warp you, as it warped him. Harry nodded solemnly. I want to learn magic to protect the forest. To help, not hurt. Epona smiled, resting a hand on his shoulder. That is why the forest chose you, Harry Potter. The unicorns became Harry's guides in healing magic and potion ingredients. Karina, who had drawn his blood for the bonding ritual, took a special interest in his education. Unicorn hair freely given holds powerful healing properties, she explained in the musical language Harry had learned to understand. They stood in a moonlit clearing, Harry gathering fallen unicorn hairs into a small pouch. But hair taken by force becomes a twisted thing, it will still work in potions, but the magic fights the maker's will. Is that true of all magical ingredients? Harry asked, carefully storing the silky strands. All things of the forest operate by this principle, Karina confirmed. Intention matters. Consent matters. The relationship between gatherer and ingredient shapes the magic. That's not how my potions book explains it, Harry said. He'd been studying the first-year Hogwarts texts that the centaurs had somehow procured for him, preparing for the day he would enter the wizarding world. Karina tossed her mane. Human wizards have forgotten much of the old knowledge. They take without asking, brew without gratitude, use without relationship. That night, Karina led Harry to a special grove where rare magical plants grew. Under her guidance, he learned to approach each plant with respect, to ask permission before harvesting, and to always leave enough for the plant to thrive. When you brew potions at your wizard school, Karina said, remember these lessons. Your potions will be stronger for the respect you show their ingredients. From the acromantulas, Harry learned hunting, tracking, and the forest's geography. Despite their fearsome appearance, the giant spiders proved to be patient teachers, especially once they realized Harry could understand and speak their clicking language. You smell the air wrong, small one, clicked Mozag, the colony's matriarch. Use your mouth slightly open, tongue against roof. Taste the air. 8-year-old Harry obediently adjusted his breathing as they tracked a wild boar through the underbrush. Suddenly, new information flooded his senses, the musky scent of the boar, yes, but also its fear, its direction, even how recently it had passed. I can smell which way it went. Harry exclaimed. It's heading toward the stream. Mozag clicked approvingly. You learn fast for a human hatchling. Now, move like forest shadow. Feet placed so. She demonstrated with her own massive legs, somehow moving silently despite her size. Harry mimicked her movements, learning to place his weight from heel to toe in a rolling motion that barely disturbed the forest floor. By age 9, Harry could move through the densest parts of the forest without making a sound, could track any creature by scent and sign, and knew every hidden path and hollow. The Botruckles, tiny tree-dwelling beings with bark-like skin, became Harry's language teachers. Their complex communication system incorporated subtle movements and expressions along with their high-pitched speech. Through them, Harry learned to speak with nearly every creature in the forest. No, 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 chittered Twiggy, an elderly Botruckle perched on Harry's shoulder. Inflection wrong. Is not Hiscroft, is Hiscroft. Different meaning entirely. Hiscroft, Harry repeated, adjusting the subtle hiss at the end of the Murmish word. Better, Twiggy approved. First way means, peaceful waters. Second means, may your enemies drown. Very important difference. Harry laughed. I'll remember. By his 10th birthday, Harry could speak Murmish, gobbledygook, troll, acromantula, centaurian, and a dozen other non-human languages. The gift of Parseltongue, snake speech, had come to him naturally, requiring no teaching at all, which Firenze found significant but wouldn't explain why. Throughout these years, Harry occasionally caught glimpses of a large, wild-haired man wandering the forest edges. The forest beings identified him as Rubeus Hagrid, gamekeeper of Hogwarts. He respects the forest, Firenze explained when Harry asked about him. Not like other humans. He treats creatures with kindness. Should I talk to him? Harry asked, watching from behind an ancient oak as Hagrid tended to an injured Thestral. Harry could see the skeletal, winged horses clearly. He had witnessed death in the forest, where the cycle of life and death played out naturally. Not yet, Firenze advised. Your time to enter the wizard world will come. For now, it is better that few know of your connection to us. The most challenging aspect of Harry's double life was controlling his magic around the Dursleys. As his forest magic grew stronger, spontaneous manifestations became more common, flowers sprouting in his footprints, animals appearing to help him with chores, weather responding to his emotions. After an incident where Harry accidentally summoned a rainstorm inside the house during one of Vernon's rages, Epona began teaching him control techniques. Your magic is wild, Harry, like the forest itself, she explained. Beautiful and powerful, but untamed. You must learn to channel it deliberately, or it will respond to your emotions unbidden. She taught him meditation, showing him how to visualize his magic as a river that he could dam or direct as needed. Each night before returning to Privet Drive, Harry would sit beside the heart spring, centering himself, building mental barriers to contain his power while among the Dursleys. By age 10, Harry had mastered enough control that no unexplainable events occurred at Privet Drive, no matter how angry or frightened he became. He could summon or suppress his magic at will, performing wandless spells that even adult wizards would find challenging. But more importantly, he had found family. The creatures of the forest became his teachers, his protectors, his friends. The forest itself became his true home. And as his 11th birthday approached, Harry prepared for the next great adventure, entering the wizarding world not just as the boy who lived, but as the chosen of the forest. On the morning of his 11th birthday, Harry woke in his usual spot beside the heart spring, where he'd taken to sleeping most nights. The waters bubbled more actively than usual, sending up tiny sparkles of light. Happy birthday, young one, came Firenze's voice. The centaur approached carrying something in his hands, a letter with emerald green writing. Harry sat up quickly. Is that your Hogwarts letter? Firenze confirmed, handing it over. It appeared at your relative's home this morning. I had Pip retrieve it before they could intercept it. A small bowtruckle waved from Firenze's mane, chittering proudly about his sneaky mission. Harry ran his fingers over the address, written in green ink, Mr. H. Potter, the cupboard under the stairs 4, Privet Drive, Little Whinging Surrey. He turned it over to see a purple wax seal bearing a coat of arms, a lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake surrounding a large letter H. They know I sleep in a cupboard, Harry observed. Firenze's expression darkened. The magical quill that addresses the letters records the truth. I suspect Albus Dumbledore does not check each address personally. Harry broke the seal and pulled out the letter inside. As he read the acceptance to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, a mixture of excitement and anxiety filled him. What if I don't fit in? He asked quietly. I haven't been raised like other wizard children. I don't know their customs, their history. You have been taught by the oldest beings in Britain, Firenze replied firmly. You speak languages most wizards have forgotten existed. You can perform wandless magic that would astonish their teachers. You may not fit their mold, Harry Potter, but you will bring knowledge they desperately need to remember. Harry nodded, squaring his shoulders. What do I do now? First, you must reply, Firenze said. Hagrid will likely be sent to escort you to purchase school supplies, as your aunt and uncle have no knowledge of our world. But I already know about magic, Harry pointed out. Dumbledore doesn't know that, Firenze reminded him. For now, it may be wise to let the wizards believe you are learning of magic for the first time. Harry considered this. A secret advantage. Precisely. Firenze smiled approvingly. The forest has taught you well. Harry quickly penned his acceptance on the provided parchment, and a tawny owl who had been waiting in a nearby tree swooped down to take it. Now we prepare, Firenze said. The forest has gifts for you before you depart for Hogwarts. Throughout the day, the various beings of the forest presented Harry with birthday gifts, a small pouch of freely given unicorn hair from Karina, a cloak woven from acromantula silk that would blend with any environment from Mozag, a carved wooden flute from the centaurs that could call forest creatures when played. The most surprising gift came from the heart spring itself. As Harry knelt beside it at sunset, the waters surged upward, forming a small crystal vial in midair. The vial filled with glowing blue water from the spring before sealing itself and floating into Harry's palm. The essence of the heart spring, Epona gasped, clearly shocked. Such a gift has not been granted in living memory. What does it do? Harry asked, examining the softly glowing vial. It is pure forest magic, Epona explained. A single drop can heal nearly any injury, cleanse corruption, or temporarily boost your connection to the forest when you are far from it. Use it only in direst need, for the spring gives rarely and purposefully. Harry carefully tucked the vial into a leather pouch and hung it around his neck. As stars appeared in the evening sky, Harry prepared to return to Privet Drive to await Hagrid's arrival. Before he left, Firenze pulled him aside. Remember who you are, Harry Potter, the centaur said solemnly. In the world of wizards, you will hear many things about yourself, some true, some false. You will be called the boy who lived, celebrated for something you cannot remember doing. But here in the forest, you are simply Harry, the chosen one who heals rather than harms, who listens rather than commands, who respects all beings regardless of their form. Harry hugged the centaur tightly. I won't forget. This is my real home. The forest will always welcome you, Firenze assured him. No matter how far you travel, the paths will remain open to you. With these words echoing in his mind, Harry dissolved into golden mist, following the shimmering thread back to Privet Drive to await the letter that would change his life once again. Chapter 2, Worlds Collide. Harry woke to thunderous pounding on the front door of 4, Privet Drive. He'd spent a restless night in his cupboard, too excited about Hagrid's imminent arrival to properly sleep. The Dursleys had been acting weird all week, jumpy and paranoid, constantly checking the mail before Harry could get to it. Uncle Vernon had even boarded up the mail slot after the third Hogwarts letter arrived. Open up. The voice outside was as massive as the knocking. Harry grinned in the darkness of his cupboard. The forest beings had told him about Rubeus Hagrid, keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts, half-giant, animal lover. They spoke of him with respect, which meant Harry already liked him. Vernon's footsteps thundered down the stairs, followed by his angry shout. Who the devil are you? Rubeus Hagrid, here fair Harry Potter. Dumbledore sent me. Harry heard a crack and splintering of wood, the door giving way under Hagrid's strength. He suppressed a laugh. You can't just break in here. Vernon blustered. This is breaking and entering. Dry up, Dursley, ye great prune, Hagrid growled. Where's Harry? That was his cue. Harry pushed open his cupboard door and stepped out. I'm here. Hagrid's beetle-black eyes found Harry, standing in his oversized pajamas at the cupboard door. The giant man's expression shifted from irritation to shock, then to fury as he looked from Harry to the small, dark space where he'd emerged. A cupboard? Hagrid roared. Ye've been keepin' him in a cupboard? Vernon puffed up like an angry bullfrog. Now see here, how we raise the boy is none of your business. Harry stepped forward quickly, not wanting this confrontation to escalate. It's okay. You must be Hagrid. I've heard about you. Hagrid's attention snapped back to Harry, his bushy eyebrows rising. Heard about me? From who? Harry realized his mistake immediately. Normal 11-year-olds raised by muggles wouldn't know about Hagrid. I mean, I heard you at the door. Saying who you were. Hagrid didn't look entirely convinced but smiled anyway, his eyes crinkling. Well, here's Harry. Last time I saw you, you was only a baby. Yeah, look a lot like your dad, but you've got your mom's eyes. Something warm bloomed in Harry's chest. He'd seen his parents in the Heart Springs visions, but hearing someone who knew them personally make the comparison felt different. Anyway, Harry, Hagrid continued, pulling a slightly squashed box from his enormous coat. Got some at fair, yeah. 'Fraid I might have sat on it at some point, but it'll taste all right. Inside was a chocolate cake with, Happy Birthday Harry, written in green icing. Baked it myself, Hagrid said proudly. Thank you, Harry replied, genuinely touched. Besides the forest creatures, no one had ever given him a birthday present before. Right then. Hagrid clapped his massive hands together. Time to go, Harry. Got lots to buy. He's not going anywhere. Vernon finally found his voice again. We swore when we took him in we'd put a stop to all this rubbish. This rubbish? Hagrid's voice dropped dangerously. Ya mean to tell me this boy knows nothing about anything? Harry decided to play along. About what? Hagrid turned to Harry, his expression incredulous. Dursley, he thundered. Do ya mean to say that this boy, knows nothing about our world? Your world? His parents' world? What world? Harry asked, feigning confusion. Harry Potter not knowin' he's a wizard. Hagrid bellowed. Vernon made a strangled sound. Petunia, who had crept down the stairs with Dudley, let out a small scream. I'm a what? Harry asked, widening his eyes for effect. A wizard, oh, course, Hagrid said, sitting down heavily on the sofa, which groaned under his weight. And a thumpin' good un, I'd say, once ye've been trained up a bit. With a mum and dad like yours, what else would ye be? Harry listened as Hagrid explained about Hogwarts, his parents, and Voldemort. He already knew most of it from the centaurs and other forest beings, but he feigned surprise and asked questions a normal 11-year-old would ask. When Hagrid mentioned that Voldemort had given Harry his lightning scar, Harry reached up to touch it, thinking of the forest ritual where his blood had mixed with the heart spring, another kind of marking altogether. Right then, best be off, Harry, lots to do today, Hagrid finally said. Gotta get up to London and buy all your stuff fair school. I'm not paying for some crackpot old fool to teach him magic tricks. Vernon declared, finding a last bit of courage. Big mistake. Hagrid seized his pink umbrella and pointed it at Vernon. Never, insult, Albus Dumbledore, in front of me. Harry watched in fascination as Hagrid pointed the umbrella at Dudley, and a flash of violet light caused a curly pig's tail to sprout from his cousin's backside. Dudley howled, clutching his rear, and the Dursleys retreated in terror. Shouldn't I lost me temper, Hagrid muttered, looking at Harry apologetically. Be grateful if ye didn't mention that to anyone at Hogwarts. I'm, not supposed to do magic, strictly speakin', . Harry grinned. My lips are sealed. They traveled to London on the Underground after Harry changed into his best, still awful, clothes. Harry noticed how people stared at Hagrid's enormous form, but the half-giant seemed oblivious to the attention. This is it, Hagrid announced eventually. The Leaky Cauldron. Famous place. It was a tiny, grubby pub that nobody else on the street seemed to notice. As they stepped inside, Harry felt a strange sensation, like walking through a thin veil of water. The magical boundary was similar to what he felt at the edges of the forest nexus. The bartender recognized Hagrid immediately. "The usual, Hagrid." "Can't, Tom." "On Hogwarts business," Hagrid clapped a hand on Harry's shoulder. The bartender's eyes widened. "Good Lord, can this be?" The leaky cauldron suddenly went completely still. Everyone stared at Harry. "Bless my soul," the bartender whispered. "Harry Potter, what an honor." Before Harry knew it, he was surrounded by witches and wizards eager to shake his hand. He'd known from the forest beings that he was famous, but experiencing it firsthand was overwhelming. One wizard kept coming back for multiple handshakes. A witch nearly sobbed with joy touching his fingers. Most disconcerting was a pale, nervous-looking man with a twitching eye and a purple turban. "P.P. Potter," he stammered. "Can't tell you how pleased I am to meet you. Professor Quirrell will be one of your teachers at Hogwarts," Hagrid explained. "What sort of magic do you teach, Professor?" Harry asked politely, though something about the man made his skin crawl. The forest had taught Harry to trust his instincts, and right now, they were screaming danger. "Defense against the dark arts," Quirrell muttered. "And not that you need it, P.P. Potter." When Harry shook Quirrell's hand, a sharp pain shot through his scar. More alarming was the immediate recoil he felt from his forest magic, like it was pulling away from something toxic. Harry dropped the professor's hand quickly. "Fascinating subject," Harry managed, rubbing his scar discreetly. "Lots to learn, I imagine." Finally, Hagrid maneuvered them through the crowd. "Must get on, lots to buy." They exited through the back of the pub into a small, walled courtyard. Hagrid counted bricks in the wall and tapped a specific one with his umbrella. The brick wriggled, then a hole appeared, growing wider until they faced an archway onto a cobbled street that twisted and turned out of sight. "Welcome to Diagon Alley," Hagrid said. Harry gaped appropriately, though he was genuinely impressed. The street bustled with witches and wizards in colorful robes, shops selling everything from cauldrons to owls, and displays of broomsticks and spell books. "Gringotts first," Hagrid announced, pointing toward a snowy white building towering over the other shops. As they approached the wizard bank, Harry noticed the small, clever-faced beings guarding the doors. "Yeah, that's a goblin," Hagrid confirmed quietly. Harry fought to keep his expression neutral. The forest beings had taught him gobbledygook, the goblin language, and explained their complex culture. Showing that knowledge now would raise questions he couldn't answer. Inside, they approached a goblin at a high counter. Hagrid cleared his throat. "Mr. Harry Potter would like to make a withdrawal." The goblin peered down at Harry. "And does Mr. Potter have his key?" "Got it here somewhere," Hagrid said, emptying his pockets onto the counter. "Also got a letter from Professor Dumbledore about you-know-what in Vault 713. Harry pretended not to notice the mention of this mysterious item, though his curiosity was piqued. The goblin examined both the key and letter carefully. "Very well. Griphook will take you to both vaults." Another goblin led them toward the carts that would take them deep under London. As they passed, Harry caught the eye of an elder goblin with a particularly ornate uniform. Before he could stop himself, Harry gave a small, respectful bow of the head, the traditional acknowledgement to a goblin of rank. The elder goblin's eyes widened fractionally. He returned the gesture with visible surprise before Harry was whisked away. The cart ride was exhilarating, like traveling the forest pathways in mist form, but with a physical body. They stopped first at Harry's vault, which contained mounds of gold, silver, and bronze coins. "All yours," Hagrid told him with a smile. Their next stop was Vault 713, which contained nothing but a small, grubby package that Hagrid tucked deep inside his coat. "Hogwarts business," he said, effectively ending any questions Harry might ask. Back outside in the sunlight, Hagrid suggested Harry get his uniform while he recovered from the cart ride with a pick-me-up at the leaky cauldron. Harry agreed and entered Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions alone. "Hogwarts, dear?" asked Madame Malkin. "Got the lot here," another young man being fitted up just now, in fact. In the back, a boy with a pale, pointed face was standing on a footstool while a second which pinned up his long black robes. Harry recognized the aristocratic features. This must be a Malfoy. The centaurs had told him about the old wizarding families. "Hello," the boy said. "Hogwarts, too?" "Yes," Harry replied, stepping onto the stool beside him. "My father's next door buying my books and mother's up the street looking at wands," the boy drawled. "Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully father into getting me one and I'll smuggle it in somehow." Harry raised an eyebrow slightly. The boy's sense of entitlement reminded him of Dudley. "Have you got your own broom?" the boy went on. "Not yet," Harry answered. "Play Quidditch at all?" "Not yet," Harry repeated, though he knew the rules from the centaur's teachings. "I do. Father says it's a crime if I'm not picked to play for my house, and I must say, I agree." "Know what house you'll be in yet?" "No one knows until they get there," Harry pointed out. "Well, I know I'll be in Slytherin, all our family have been. Imagine being in Hufflepuff. I think I'd leave, wouldn't you?" Before Harry could answer, the shop door opened and a beautiful snowy owl in a cage floated in, apparently on its own. It soared directly to Harry, perching on the edge of his stool. Madame Malkin gasped. "Gracious! Whose owl is that?" The owl hooted softly, looking directly at Harry with intelligent amber eyes. Harry felt a familiar sensation, the same connection he developed with forest creatures. "I believe she's mine," he said simply. The pale boy looked impressed despite himself. "Trained to find you without an address? Must be a very expensive owl." The owl nipped affectionately at Harry's fingers. Harry sensed she'd been sent by the forest somehow, though he couldn't explain that. "What's your surname, anyway?" the boy asked. Before Harry could answer, Madame Malkin announced, "That's you done, my dear," and Harry, not sorry for an excuse to stop talking to the boy, hopped down from the footstool. "I'll see you at Hogwarts, I suppose," the boy said. Outside, Hagrid returned, surprised to see Harry with an owl. "Where did ye get her?" he asked, bewildered. Harry shrugged. "She found me in the shop. Just flew in." "Blimey, that's unusual. Owls don't normally choose their wizards that way." Hagrid looked thoughtful. "Tell ya what, happy birthday, Harry. I'll pay fare her." "You don't have to, I want her. Never had a proper birthday present, did ya? Besides, dead useful, owls. Carry your mail and everything. Harry smiled gratefully. "Thank you, Hagrid. I think I'll call her Hedwig. I read it in a history of magic." They continued shopping, collecting Harry's school books, cauldron, potion ingredients, and other supplies. Harry had to consciously stop himself from handling the potion ingredients too expertly or commenting on the quality of certain items. Finally, only his wand remained. "Ollivander's," Hagrid said. "Ain't no place better." The narrow, shabby shop had a single wand on a faded purple cushion in the window. As Harry entered alone, Hagrid waited outside. A tinkling bell rang somewhere in the depths of the shop. Harry felt a strange sensation, like the air was charged with secret magic. "Good afternoon," said a soft voice. Harry jumped, startled. An old man stood before them, his wide, pale eyes shining like moons in the shop's gloom. "Ah yes," the man said. Yes. I thought I'd be seeing you soon. Harry Potter." It wasn't a question. "You have your mother's eyes. It seems only yesterday she was in here herself, buying her first wand. 10¼ inches long, swishy, made of willow. Nice wand for charm work." Mr. Ollivander moved closer to Harry, who fought the urge to step back. The forest had taught him to stand his ground, but something about those silvery eyes was unnerving. Your father, on the other hand, favored a mahogany wand. 11 inches. Pliable. A little more power and excellent for transfiguration. Well, I say your father favored it, it's really the wand that chooses the wizard, of course. Ollivander came so close their noses almost touched. He traced the lightning scar with a long, white finger. I'm sorry to say I sold the wand that did it, he said softly. 13.5 inches. You. Powerful wand, very powerful, and in the wrong hands. Well, if I'd known what that wand was going out into the world to do. He shook his head, then brightened. Well now, Mr. Potter. Let me see. He pulled a tape measure from his pocket. Which is your wand arm? I'm right-handed, Harry replied, though he could channel his forest magic equally well through either hand. Hold out your arm. Ollivander measured Harry from shoulder to finger, wrist to elbow, shoulder to floor, knee to armpit, and round his head. As he worked, he explained how each Ollivander wand had a core of powerful magical substance, unicorn hairs, phoenix tail feathers, or dragon heartstrings. Harry kept his face neutral at the mention of unicorn hairs, thinking of Karina and her lessons on freely given magical components. Right then, Mr. Potter. Try this one. Beechwood and dragon heartstring. 9 inches. Nice and flexible. Just take it and give it a wave. Harry took the wand, feeling immediately that something was wrong. It felt dead in his hand compared to the living magic he channeled from the forest. Nevertheless, he waved it, only to have Ollivander snatch it away almost immediately. Maple and phoenix feather. 7 inches. Quite whippy. Try, Harry tried. And tried. The pile of rejected wands mounted higher and higher, but rather than growing frustrated, Ollivander seemed increasingly excited. Tricky customer, eh? Not to worry, we'll find the perfect match here somewhere, I wonder, now, unusual combination, holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, nice and supple. Harry took the wand, and immediately felt warmth in his fingers. When he raised the wand, a stream of red and gold sparks shot from the end like a firework, throwing dancing spots of light onto the walls. The effect was impressive, but Harry felt a strange constraint, like trying to pour a river through a garden hose. Ollivander cried, "Oh, bravo! Yes, indeed, oh, very good. Well, 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 how curious, how very curious." He put Harry's wand back into its box, muttering, "Curious, curious." "Sorry," said Harry, "but what's curious?" Ollivander fixed Harry with his pale stare. "I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Every single wand. It so happens that the phoenix whose tail feather is in your wand, gave another feather, just one other. It is very curious indeed that you should be destined for this wand when its brother, why, its brother gave you that scar." Harry swallowed. "And who owned that wand?" "We do not speak his name. The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter. I think we must expect great things from you. After all, he who must not be named did great things, terrible, yes, but great." As Harry paid for his wand, he couldn't shake the feeling that while the holly wand had chosen him, it was only getting half the story. His forest magic felt contained, restricted within the wand's channel. Yet he also sensed that in the wizarding world, he would need this focus. The last month with the Dursleys was strangely peaceful. Vernon, Petunia, and Dudley were so scared of Harry now that they barely acknowledged his existence. Harry spent most nights in the forest, preparing for Hogwarts with his true family. The centaurs coached him on how to blend in with wizard-raised children, while still maintaining his unique connection to the forest. "You must be careful," Firenze warned one night as they gazed at the stars. "The wizarding world has prejudices against many forest beings. Your loyalty to us may not be understood." "I won't hide who I am," Harry said firmly. "Not hide, but perhaps, introduce your differences gradually," Epona suggested. "Humans fear what they do not understand. Give them time to know you before revealing the full extent of your connection to us." Harry nodded thoughtfully. I'll be careful. On his last night before departing for Hogwarts, Harry slept beside the Heart Spring. In the morning, the centaurs performed a blessing ritual, forming a circle around him as Epona recited ancient words of protection. Remember, she told him, no matter how far you travel, the forest paths will remain open to you. You need only call, and we will hear. The next morning, Harry insisted on going to King's Cross Station alone, not wanting the Dursleys' negativity on this important day. He arrived early, pushing his trunk and Hedwig's cage on a trolley, navigating easily to the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. The centaurs had explained how to access platform 9 and 3/4. Harry approached the seemingly solid wall and, checking that no muggles were watching, walked straight through it. On the other side, a scarlet steam engine waited beside a platform packed with people. A sign overhead read Hogwarts Express, 11 o'clock. Smoke drifted over the heads of the chattering crowd. Cats of every color wound between legs. Owls hooted to one another in a disgruntled sort of way over the babble and the scraping of heavy trunks. Harry pushed his trolley down the platform, looking for an empty compartment. Along the way, he passed a round-faced boy who was saying, "Gran, I've lost my toad again." "Oh, Neville," he heard the old woman sigh. Harry paused, reaching out with his forest senses. He detected the faint magical signature of a toad, under a nearby bench. Casually, he knelt down and peered beneath it. "Hello there," he whispered to the fat toad hiding in the shadows. "Your owner's looking for you." The toad stared at him, unblinking. In the forest language of amphibians, Harry added, "Would you mind coming with me? He's worried." To the astonishment of a watching witch, the toad hopped straight into Harry's outstretched hand. He walked back to the round-faced boy. "Excuse me, is this your toad?" The boy's face lit up. "Trevor. How did you find him?" "He's always running off." "He was under a bench," Harry explained, carefully omitting the part about talking to the toad. "I'm Harry, by the way." "I'm Neville. Neville Longbottom. Thanks for finding him." After helping Neville stow his trunk in a compartment, Harry found an empty one near the end of the train. He lifted his trunk into it with surprising ease. Years of climbing trees and running through the forest had made him stronger than he looked. The train began to move, and Harry watched as platform 9 and 3/4 disappeared from view. A sense of excitement and trepidation filled him. He was finally heading to Hogwarts, but also leaving the forest further behind than ever before. The compartment door slid open, and the youngest red-headed boy from a large family Harry had spotted on the platform entered. "Anyone sitting there?" he asked, pointing at the seat opposite Harry. "Everywhere else is full." "Go ahead," Harry replied. The boy sat down and introduced himself as Ron Weasley, stealing glances at Harry's forehead. Eventually, he blurted out, "Are you really Harry Potter?" Harry nodded, and Ron asked to see the scar, which Harry showed him. Their conversation turned to Ron's family, 5 older brothers, 1 younger sister, Harry's life with the Muggles, which he downplayed, and the wizarding world in general. "I heard you went to live with Muggles," Ron said. "What are they like?" Harry considered his answer carefully. "They don't understand magic. It frightens them." "That's mental," Ron declared. "Not understanding magic." A thought struck Harry. "Do you understand everything about the Muggle world?" Ron flushed slightly. "Well, no. Dad's crazy about Muggle stuff, but even he gets confused about how airplanes stay up." "Maybe it's the same for Muggles with magic," Harry suggested. "They can't explain it, so it scares them." Ron looked thoughtful. "Never considered it that way." Their conversation was interrupted when a smiling, dimpled woman slid back their door and asked if they wanted anything from the trolley. Ron muttered something about sandwiches, but Harry, who had never had wizard candy before, bought some of everything. As they feasted on chocolate frogs, Bertie Bott's every flavor beans, and other treats, their compartment door slid open again. A girl with bushy brown hair and rather large front teeth stood there, already wearing her Hogwarts robes. "Has anyone seen a toad?" "Neville's lost one," she said in a bossy sort of voice. "We already helped him find it earlier," Harry replied. "Is it missing again?" "Yes, he got away while Neville was showing him to someone." She had a know-it-all voice and an air of confidence that didn't quite ring true to Harry's forest-trained senses. He detected anxiety beneath her bravado. "I'm Hermione Granger, by the way." She sat down without being invited. "And you are?" "Ron Weasley." "Harry Potter." "Are you really?" Hermione looked excited. "I know all about you, of course. I got a few extra books for background reading, and you're in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts and great wizarding events of the 20th century. "Am I?" Harry asked, genuinely surprised. The forest beings hadn't mentioned books about him. "Goodness, didn't you know?" "I'd have found out everything I could if it was me," Hermione said. "Do either of you know what house you'll be in?" "I've been asking around, and I hope I'm in Gryffindor. It sounds by far the best. I hear Dumbledore himself was in it, but I suppose Ravenclaw wouldn't be too bad." She spoke very fast, barely taking a breath. Harry sensed her nervousness again. She was trying to impress them with knowledge to compensate for insecurity. "Whatever house I'm in, I hope she's not in it," Ron muttered when Hermione finally left to continue looking for Neville's toad. "She's just nervous," Harry said. "Probably Muggleborn and trying to fit in by learning everything she can." Ron gave him a curious look. "How'd you figure that?" Harry shrugged. "Just a guess." Their peaceful journey was interrupted once more when three boys entered their compartment. Harry recognized the pale boy from Madame Malkin's robe shop, flanked by two thick-set boys who looked like bodyguards. "Is it true?" the pale boy asked. "They're saying all down the train that Harry Potter's in this compartment." "So it's you, is it?" "Yes," Harry replied, assessing the three boys. They reminded him of predators who hadn't yet learned their place in the forest hierarchy. "This is Crabbe and Goyle," the pale boy said casually. "And my name's Malfoy, Draco Malfoy." Ron gave a slight cough, which might have been hiding a snigger. Draco Malfoy looked at him. "Think my name's funny, do you?" "No need to ask who you are. My father told me all the Weasleys have red hair, freckles, and more children than they can afford." He turned back to Harry. "You'll soon find out some wizarding families are much better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there." He held out his hand to shake Harry's, but Harry didn't take it. "I think I can tell who the wrong sort are for myself, thanks," he said coolly. The forest had taught him to judge beings by their actions, not their bloodlines or appearances. Malfoy didn't go red, but a pink tinge appeared in his pale cheeks. "I'd be careful if I were you, Potter. Unless you're a bit politer you'll go the same way as your parents. They didn't know what was good for them, either. You hang around with riffraff like the Weasleys and that Hagrid, and it'll rub off on you." Both Harry and Ron stood up. "Say that again," Ron said, face as red as his hair. "Oh, you're going to fight us, are you?" Malfoy sneered. Harry didn't reach for his wand. Instead, he simply stared directly into Malfoy's eyes, channeling the quiet intensity he'd learned from the centaurs. Something in his gaze, perhaps a flicker of forest magic, made Malfoy take an involuntary step back. "We're not interested in fighting," Harry said quietly. "But it would be wise for you to leave now." Malfoy seemed about to say something nasty but hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "Come on," he said to Crabbe and Goyle, and the three of them disappeared. Ron stared at Harry. "How'd you do that? Make him back off without even touching your wand?" Harry shrugged. "Just lucky, I guess." Night had fallen by the time they reached Hogsmeade Station. As they disembarked, a lamp came bobbing over the heads of the students, and Harry heard a familiar voice, "Fur's years. Fur's years over here." "All right there, Harry." Hagrid's big hairy face beamed over the sea of heads. He led them down a steep, narrow path that Harry recognized immediately. It bordered the forest. They rounded a bend, and suddenly Hogwarts came into view, its windows sparkling in the starry sky, a vast castle perched atop a mountain on the other side of a great black lake. "No more N4 to a boat," Hagrid called, pointing to a fleet of little boats sitting in the water by the shore. Harry and Ron were joined by Neville and Hermione. As they glided across the lake, Harry felt a familiar presence beneath the water, mere people, watching curiously from the depths. One surfaced briefly, catching Harry's eye before disappearing with a flick of her silvery tail. He nodded slightly in greeting, remembering the Mermish lessons from the Bowtruckles. They reached the castle and climbed a flight of stone steps to a huge, oak front door. Hagrid raised his gigantic fist and knocked 3 times. The door swung open immediately. A tall, black-haired witch in emerald green robes stood there with a very stern face. Harry immediately recognized someone not to cross. "The Fur's years, Professor McGonagall," said Hagrid. "Thank you, Hagrid. I will take them from here." She led them into an entrance hall so big you could have fit the Dursleys' entire house in it. They followed Professor McGonagall into a small, empty chamber off the hall, where she explained about the 4 houses, Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin, and the sorting ceremony that was about to take place. When she left them alone temporarily, nervous chatter broke out about how exactly they would be sorted. Ron mentioned his brothers telling him it hurt a lot, though he thought they were joking. Hermione started whispering all the spells she'd learned, wondering which one she'd need. Harry remained calm. The centaurs had told him about the sorting hat, though he kept this knowledge to himself. After several ghosts floated through, causing many first years to scream, Professor McGonagall returned and led them into the great hall. Harry's breath caught at the enchanted ceiling that perfectly mirrored the starry night sky outside. Thousands of candles floated in midair over 4 long tables where the rest of the students sat. Professor McGonagall placed a 4-legged stool in front of the first years. On top of the stool, she put a pointed wizard's hat that was patched, frayed, and extremely dirty. For a few seconds, there was complete silence. Then the hat twitched, a rip near the brim opened wide like a mouth, and the hat began to sing about the 4 houses and their qualities. The entire hall burst into applause when the hat finished its song. Professor McGonagall stepped forward with a long roll of parchment. "When I call your name, you will put on the hat and sit on the stool to be sorted," she said. Harry watched as, one by one, his fellow first-years were sorted. Hermione Granger went to Gryffindor, to Ron's dismay, as did Neville Longbottom. Draco Malfoy went to Slytherin the instant the hat touched his head. Finally, Professor McGonagall called, "Potter, Harry." As Harry stepped forward, whispers broke out like little hissing fires all over the hall. "Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter?" Harry sat on the stool, and the last thing he saw before the hat dropped over his eyes was the hall full of people craning to get a good look at him. Said a small voice in his ear. "Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent, oh my goodness, yes, and what's this? Oh, how fascinating, a connection to the Forbidden Forest itself. I haven't seen this in, well, never, actually." Harry gripped the edges of the stool, thinking, "You can see that? I see everything in your mind, Mr. Potter. And yours is unlike any I've encountered. Wild magic flows through you, ancient and powerful. The centaurs have taught you well. You could be great in Slytherin, with that power and cunning." Not Slytherin, Harry thought firmly. Not Slytherin, eh? You could achieve greatness there, you know. But I see your heart belongs to the forest and its creatures. Your loyalty to them is fierce, your bravery in facing both worlds remarkable. Better be Gryffindor. Harry heard the hat shout the last word to the whole hall. He removed it and walked shakily toward the Gryffindor table, where he received the loudest cheer yet. Percy Weasley, Ron's prefect brother, got up and shook his hand vigorously, while the Weasley twins yelled, "We got Potter! We got Potter!" As Harry sat down, he glanced up at the high table. Hagrid gave him a thumbs up. In the center, in a large gold chair, sat Albus Dumbledore, instantly recognizable from Harry's heart-spring visions. And there, at the end, staring at him with an expression of utter loathing, was a hook-nosed, greasy-haired man. A sharp, hot pain shot across the scar on Harry's forehead. Ouch! Harry clapped a hand to his head. "What is it?" Percy asked. "Nothing," Harry lied. He glanced again at the teacher, who was now deep in conversation with Professor Quirrell. The forest had taught Harry to trust his instincts, and right now, they told him to be wary of both men. Ron joined him at the Gryffindor table moments later, and the sorting concluded with Zabini, Blaise, being made a Slytherin. Albus Dumbledore stood, beaming at the students with his arms opened wide. "Welcome," he said. "Welcome to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our banquet, I would like to say a few words, nitwit. Blubber. Oddment. Tweak. Thank you." As Dumbledore sat back down, the dishes in front of them filled with food. Harry, who had eaten from the forest's bounty for years, found the heavily cooked and seasoned feast strange but delicious. He ate heartily, listening to the conversations around him. The Gryffindor ghost, nearly headless Nick, introduced himself, even demonstrating how his head was nearly severed by pulling on his left ear. As the feast progressed, talk turned to families. "I'm half and half," said Seamus Finnegan. "Me dad's a muggle. Mum didn't tell him she was a witch till after they were married. Bit of a nasty shock for him." Everyone laughed. Harry smiled but wondered if that was truly funny, keeping such a secret from someone you loved. Hermione and Percy discussed lessons immediately. "I do hope they start right away, there's so much to learn," while Harry gazed around the great hall, taking everything in. His eyes were drawn repeatedly to the windows facing the Forbidden Forest, his forest. Though he was inside a stone castle, he could feel the faint pull of the trees, calling to him. When the desserts disappeared and Dumbledore rose again, Harry turned his attention back to the headmaster. Dumbledore gave the start-of-term notices, warning everyone that the Forbidden Forest was off-limits to all pupils. Harry suppressed a smile, and that the third-floor corridor on the right-hand side was out of bounds to everyone who didn't want to die a very painful death. Finally, they sang the school song, each to their own tune, and were dismissed to their dormitories. Percy led the Gryffindor first years through the castle to their tower, hidden behind a portrait of a fat lady in a pink dress. "Password?" she asked. "Caput Draconis," said Percy, and the portrait swung forward to reveal a round hole in the wall, which they all scrambled through. The Gryffindor common room was a cozy, round room full of squashy armchairs. Percy directed the girls through one door to their dormitory and the boys through another. At the top of a spiral staircase, they found their beds, 5 four-posters hung with deep red, velvet curtains. Their trunks had already been brought up. Too tired to talk much, they pulled on their pajamas and fell into bed. Harry, however, didn't fall asleep immediately. The stone walls felt confining after years of sleeping under the stars or beside the heart spring. He slipped out of bed and moved to the window, gazing out at the Forbidden Forest in the distance, its dark expanse calling to him. "You okay, Harry?" Ron asked sleepily from his bed. "Just looking at the view," Harry replied quietly. "Go back to sleep." When Ron's snores joined those of the other boys, Harry closed his eyes and reached out with his forest magic. To his delight, he felt an immediate response, a golden thread appearing, connecting him to the trees in the distance. The Forbidden Forest recognized him, even from here. With a smile, Harry returned to his bed. Tomorrow, classes would begin, but tonight, he would dream of the forest. Harry's first week at Hogwarts was a whirlwind of new experiences. The castle itself was a labyrinth of shifting staircases, disappearing doors, and portraits that moved and talked. Students whispered and pointed whenever he walked past, craning their necks for a glimpse of his scar. Classes proved both fascinating and frustrating. Harry excelled in herbology, his years of learning from the forest making plant care second nature to him. Professor Sprout was visibly impressed when Harry not only identified every plant in the greenhouse but also knew their properties and how to handle them. "My goodness, Mr. Potter," she exclaimed when he correctly demonstrated how to stroke a particularly temperamental Flutterby bush to keep it calm. "Where did you learn that technique?" "I read about it," Harry lied smoothly. He couldn't exactly explain that a dryad had taught him about plant sentience. Astronomy was similarly easy, thanks to the centaur's teachings. While other students struggled to locate constellations, Harry mapped the night sky with precision, understanding not just the patterns but their meanings and movements. History of magic, taught by the ghost Professor Binns, proved to be the most boring subject. Even Harry, with his patience honed by hours of silent observation in the forest, found it challenging to stay awake during Binns' droning lectures. Defense against the dark arts, which many students had been looking forward to, was a disappointment. Professor Quirrell's classroom smelled strongly of garlic, and the teacher himself was a nervous wreck who jumped at shadows. More concerning to Harry was the constant pain in his scar whenever Quirrell turned his back, and the strange darkness Harry sensed lurking beneath the professor's fearful exterior. Transfiguration with Professor McGonagall revealed Harry's first significant challenge. While he understood the theory perfectly, his practical attempts were inconsistent. Sometimes his matchstick transformed into a perfect needle instantly, other times, nothing happened at all. "You're fighting the wand," McGonagall observed privately after class. "Your magic seems resistant to structured channeling." "Most curious." Harry nodded, not daring to explain that he was accustomed to wandless magic flowing directly from his connection to the forest. The wand felt like a bottleneck, constraining his power rather than focusing it. Charms presented similar difficulties. Professor Flitwick, who had fallen off his stack of books when he read Harry's name during roll call, praised Harry's understanding but noted his inconsistent spellcasting. By far the worst class was potions, though not because of the subject itself. It took place in the dungeons, which were cold and damp, far from any windows or natural light. Professor Snape, the hook-nosed teacher Harry had noticed at the feast, started the class with roll call, pausing at Harry's name. "Ah, yes," he said softly. "Harry Potter. Our new celebrity." Draco Malfoy and his friends Crabbe and Goyle sniggered behind their hands. Snape finished calling the names and looked up at the class, his eyes cold and empty like deep tunnels. "You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion-making," he began in barely more than a whisper. "As there is little foolish wand-waving here, many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly simmering cauldron with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind, and snaring the senses. I can teach you how to bottle fame, brew glory, even stopper death, if you aren't as big a bunch of dunderheads as I usually have to teach." Silence followed this little speech. Hermione was on the edge of her seat, looking desperate to prove she wasn't a dunderhead. Harry maintained a calm exterior, though inwardly he was excited. Potions were similar to the herbal remedies and elixirs the unicorns had taught him. "Potter," said Snape suddenly. "What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" Harry knew the answer immediately. The unicorns had taught him about the draught of living death, but he hesitated. Would a normal first year know this? Hermione's hand shot into the air beside him. "I don't know, sir," Harry said cautiously. Snape's lips curled into a sneer. "Fame clearly isn't everything. Let's try again. Potter, where would you look if I told you to find me a bezoar?" Again, Harry knew, a stone from a goat's stomach that counteracted most poisons. The forest beings had made sure he understood antidotes for common toxic plants and venoms. Again, he feigned ignorance. "I don't know, sir." "Thought you wouldn't open a book before coming, Potter." Snape continued to ignore Hermione's quivering hand. "What is the difference, Potter, between monkshood and wolfsbane?" This time, Harry decided to answer. The forest had taught him to stand his ground when challenged unfairly. "They're the same plant, sir," he said clearly. "Also known as aconite." Snape's eyes narrowed dangerously. "And where, precisely, did you learn that, Potter? I was under the impression you hadn't opened your textbooks." "I did read them, sir," Harry replied evenly. "I just didn't memorize everything." That question happened to be in a chapter one remembered. A flicker of surprise crossed Snape's face before his sneer returned. 1 point to Gryffindor for a correct answer. And a point from Gryffindor for your cheek, Potter. Things didn't improve as the potions lesson continued. Snape put them all into pairs and set them to mixing a simple potion to cure boils. Harry worked methodically, handling the ingredients with the reverence Karina had taught him. When he approached the supply cabinet for dried nettles, he quietly thanked the plants under his breath, a habit from the forest. Snape swept around the room, criticizing everyone except Malfoy, whom he seemed to favor. He was just telling everyone to look at the perfect way Malfoy had stewed his horned slugs when clouds of acid green smoke and a loud hissing filled the dungeon. Neville had somehow managed to melt Seamus's cauldron, and their potion was seeping across the stone floor, burning holes in people's shoes. Within seconds, the whole class was standing on their stools while Neville, who had been drenched in the potion when the cauldron collapsed, moaned in pain as angry red boils sprang up all over his arms and legs. "Idiot boy," snarled Snape, clearing the spilled potion away with one wave of his wand. "I suppose you added the porcupine quills before taking the cauldron off the fire?" Neville whimpered as boils started to pop up all over his nose. "Take him up to the hospital wing," Snape spat at Seamus. Then he rounded on Harry and Ron, who had been working next to Neville. "You, Potter, why didn't you tell him not to add the quills? Thought he'd make you look good if he got it wrong, did you?" "That's another point from Gryffindor." Harry opened his mouth to protest. This was so unfair it made his blood boil, but Ron kicked him behind their cauldron. "Don't push it," he muttered. "I've heard Snape can turn very nasty." Harry swallowed his retort, but his potion began bubbling more vigorously, responding to his suppressed anger. He took a deep breath, calming himself as Epona had taught him, and the potion settled. To his satisfaction, by the end of the class, Harry and Ron's potion was perfect, a fact that seemed to irritate Snape even more. By Friday, Harry had established a routine. During the day, he attended classes, spent time with Ron and his other new friends, and played the role of a typical wizard student. But at night, after his dorm mates fell asleep, he would follow the golden thread that connected him to the Forbidden Forest. Using the forest pathways, he could dissolve into mist and reform deep within the woods without ever physically leaving the castle. There, he would meet with the centaurs, unicorns, and other beings that called the Hogwarts forest home. To his delight, he discovered that many were related to his original forest family. Firenze had cousins here, and several of the unicorns recognized him by scent as being blessed by their kind. "The forests are all connected through ancient magic," an elderly centaur named Remus explained during Harry's first visit. "What you call your forest and what wizards call the Forbidden Forest are merely different parts of the same ancient woodland that once covered all of Britain." That explained how Harry had accessed the forest nexus from Surrey that first day, and how the forest creatures had known about his arrival at Hogwarts. The forest itself was a single, vast entity with many branches. On Friday night, as Harry met with a group of centaurs in a moonlit clearing, he noticed someone else moving through the trees, a massive, familiar silhouette. "Hagrid," he whispered. The centaurs tensed. "The gamekeeper approaches. You should go, Harry Potter. Your connection to us must remain secret for now." Harry nodded and slipped behind a massive oak just as Hagrid entered the clearing, crossbow in hand. The centaurs greeted him with cool politeness. "Evenin'," Hagrid said. "Just check in, the boundaries. Something's been killing unicorns." Harry's blood ran cold. Killing unicorns? The very thought was abhorrent. "We are aware," Remus replied stiffly. "The stars have warned of dark times ahead." "Well, if ya see anythin', let me know," Hagrid said. "Whatever's doin', it needs to be stopped." After Hagrid left, Harry emerged from hiding. "Something's killing unicorns." "Why?" "Unicorn blood can sustain life, even if one is inches from death," Remus explained gravely. "But at a terrible cost. The life preserved is cursed from the moment the blood touches the lips." "Who would be desperate enough to do that?" Harry asked. The centaurs exchanged meaningful looks. "One who has much to fear from death. One who believes you destroyed them once before." Harry's eyes widened. "Voldemort? But he's gone." "Is he?" Remus looked to the stars. "Mars is bright tonight. War approaches." The next morning at breakfast, Harry received his first piece of mail besides his Hogwarts letter. As hundreds of owls streamed into the great hall, Hedwig soared down to Harry with a note clutched in her beak. She nuzzled his hand affectionately before helping herself to bits of his toast. Harry opened the note. It read, in a very untidy scrawl, "Dear Harry, I know you get Friday afternoons off, so would you like to come and have a cup of tea with me around 3? I want to hear all about your first week. Send an answer back with Hedwig." Hagrid. Harry borrowed Ron's quill, scribbled, "Yes, please, see you later," on the back of the note and sent Hedwig off again. At 3 o'clock, Harry and Ron left the castle and made their way across the grounds to Hagrid's small wooden house on the edge of the Forbidden Forest. A crossbow and a pair of galoshes stood outside the front door. When Harry knocked, they heard a frantic scrabbling from inside and several booming barks. Then Hagrid's voice rang out, saying, "Back, Fong, back." Hagrid's big, hairy face appeared in the crack as he pulled the door open. "Hang on," he said. "Back, Fong." He let them in, struggling to keep a hold on the collar of an enormous black boarhound. Inside was a single room with hams and pheasants hanging from the ceiling, a copper kettle boiling on the open fire, and a massive bed with a patchwork quilt in the corner. "Make yourselves at home," said Hagrid, letting go of Fong, who bounded straight at Ron and licked his ears. To Harry's surprise, when Fong approached him, the dog suddenly became very still, sniffed him carefully, then whined softly and laid his head in Harry's lap. "Well, look at that," Hagrid said, surprised. "Fong don't usually take to strangers so quick. Got away with animals, have ya, Harry?" Harry shrugged, scratching Fong behind the ears in the exact spot most canines preferred. "I guess so." As Hagrid poured boiling water into a large teapot and put rock cakes onto a plate, Harry and Ron told him about their first lessons. Fong rested his head on Harry's knee, drooling contentedly. "How are ya find in Hogwarts, Harry?" Hagrid asked. "Different from livin' with them muggles, eh?" "Very different," Harry agreed. "Everything here feels more alive." Hagrid beamed. "That's magic fair, yeah. Nothin' like it in the world." They discussed their classes, and when Harry mentioned Snape seeming to hate him, Hagrid dismissed it as imagination. Harry wasn't convinced, especially when Hagrid avoided meeting his eyes. As they talked, Harry noticed a piece of paper lying on the table under a tea cozy. It was a cutting from the Daily Prophet about a break-in at Gringotts on July 31st, his birthday. The vault in question, 713, had been emptied earlier that day. With a jolt, Harry remembered Hagrid emptying Vault 713 when they'd visited Gringotts, taking out that small, grubby package. Was that what the thieves had been looking for? As they walked back to the castle for dinner, Harry's mind raced. Between the mysterious package, Snape's animosity, Quirrell's suspicious behavior, and something killing unicorns in the forest, Harry sensed dangerous currents swirling beneath Hogwarts' seemingly peaceful surface. That night, he slipped into the Forbidden Forest again, determined to protect the unicorns if he could. He found a young male unicorn grazing alone in a small clearing and approached slowly. "I come as a friend," Harry said in the language of forest beings. "The centaurs told me something is hunting your kind." The unicorn regarded him with intelligent eyes. "You smell of our blessing," it replied. The forest chosen human foal. I want to help protect you, Harry explained. Can you tell me what's hunting you? A shadow that drinks life, the unicorn said, pawing the ground nervously. Not beast, not man, but something in between. It moves on two legs but slithers like a snake. Harry frowned. Does it come at specific times? When the moon hides her face, the unicorn replied. On the darkest nights. That night was nearly a full moon, so the unicorns would be safe for now. Harry promised to return and help when the moon waned. Before leaving, he wove protective forest magic around the unicorn, not enough to be visible, but enough to warn him if danger approached. As weeks passed, Harry settled into a rhythm at Hogwarts. During the day, he attended classes, gradually improving in subjects requiring wand work by finding ways to adapt his forest magic to the structured spells. At night, he split his time between the Gryffindor dormitory and the Forbidden Forest, checking on the unicorns and learning from the centaurs. His friendship with Ron grew stronger, and slowly, he began to connect with Hermione as well, though she remained somewhat aloof, focused intently on her studies. Everything changed on Halloween night. The Great Hall had been decorated with thousands of live bats, giant pumpkins carved into lanterns, and orange streamers swimming lazily across the enchanted ceiling like water snakes. The feast promised to be magnificent, but Harry noticed Hermione was missing. "Where's Hermione?" he asked Neville as they took their seats. "Parvati said she's been crying in the girls' bathroom all afternoon," Neville replied. "Ron said something that upset her in charms." Harry glanced at Ron, who looked uncomfortable but muttered, "She's a nightmare, honestly. No wonder she hasn't got any friends." Harry frowned. "That's not fair, Ron. She's just trying to fit in." Before they could argue further, Professor Quirrell came sprinting into the hall, his turban askew and terror on his face. Everyone went silent as he reached Professor Dumbledore's chair, slumped against the table, and gasped, "Troll, in the dungeons, thought you ought to know." He then sank to the floor in a dead faint. The hall erupted in panic until Dumbledore shot purple firecrackers from his wand and ordered prefects to lead their houses back to the dormitories while teachers went to the dungeons. As Percy led the Gryffindors through the crowds, Harry suddenly grabbed Ron's arm. "Hermione, she doesn't know about the troll." Ron bit his lip. "Oh, all right," he sighed. "But Percy better not see us." They slipped away from the Gryffindors, joining the Hufflepuffs going the other direction, then snuck down a deserted side corridor toward the girls' bathroom. They had just turned the corner when they heard quick footsteps behind them. "Percy," hissed Ron, pulling Harry behind a large stone griffin. But it wasn't Percy, it was Snape. He crossed the corridor and disappeared from view. "What's he doing?" Harry whispered. "Why isn't he down in the dungeons with the rest of the teachers?" "Search me." They crept along the next corridor after Snape's fading footsteps. "He's heading for the third floor," Harry said, but Ron held up his hand. "Can you smell something?" A foul stench reached Harry's nostrils, a mixture of old socks and the kind of public toilet no one cleans. And then they heard it, a low grunting, and the shuffling footfalls of gigantic feet. At the end of the passage, something huge was moving toward them. They shrank against the wall as a massive creature emerged into a patch of moonlight. 12 feet tall, its skin was dull, granite gray, its lumpy body like a boulder with a small bald head perched on top. It had short legs thick as tree trunks with flat, horny feet. The smell coming from it was incredible. It was holding a huge wooden club, which dragged along the floor because its arms were so long. The troll stopped next to a doorway and peered inside. It waggled its long ears, making up its tiny mind, then slouched slowly into the room. "The key's in the lock," Harry muttered. "We could lock it in." "Good idea," said Ron nervously. They edged toward the open door, Harry reaching for the key, ready to slam the door and lock it. With one great leap, he managed to grab the key, slam the door, and lock it. Yes. Flushed with their victory, they started to run back up the passage, but as they reached the corner they heard something that made their hearts stop, a high, petrified scream coming from the chamber they'd just locked. "Oh, no," said Ron, pale as the bloody Baron. "It's the girls' bathroom." Harry gasped. "Hermione," they said together. It was the last place they wanted to go, but they had no choice. Wheeling around, they sprinted back to the door and turned the key, fumbling in their panic. Harry pulled the door open, and they ran inside. Hermione was shrinking against the wall opposite, looking as if she was about to faint. The troll was advancing on her, knocking the sinks off the walls as it went. "Confuse it," Harry said desperately to Ron, and, seizing a tap, he threw it as hard as he could against the wall. The troll stopped a few feet from Hermione, turning its ugly head toward the noise. Its mean little eyes saw Harry. It hesitated, then made for him instead, lifting its club. "Oi, pea-brain," yelled Ron, throwing a metal pipe at it. The troll didn't even seem to notice the pipe hitting its shoulder, but it heard the yell and paused again, turning toward Ron instead. Harry looked at Hermione, still frozen against the wall, and made a split-second decision. Instead of using his wand, he channeled his forest magic, the language of all beings. Trolls, while not forest creatures, were still magical beings with their own primitive language. "Stop!" Harry commanded in the guttural, rumbling tongue of mountain trolls that a forest gnome had once taught him. "No hurt humans." The troll froze, its tiny eyes widening in shock at hearing its own language from a human child. It lowered its club slightly, looking confused. "Put club down," Harry continued in troll speak. "Go back to mountains. Not belong here." The troll grunted something that roughly translated to "lost." "Hungry. Scared." "I know," Harry replied, his voice gentler but still firm. "But these small humans not food. Bad magic brought you here." Ron and Hermione stared in shock as Harry apparently communicated with the troll. The creature was now standing still, club hanging limply from one hand, looking at Harry with something like respect. "What's happening?" Ron whispered. I think Harry's talking to it," Hermione whispered back, her voice shaking. Just then, the bathroom door slammed open, and Professors McGonagall, Snape, and Quirrell burst in. Quirrell took one look at the troll and let out a faint whimper, clutching his heart. Snape bent over the troll, while McGonagall stared at Harry, Ron, and Hermione with cold fury. "What on earth were you thinking?" she demanded, her lips white. "You're lucky you weren't killed. Why aren't you in your dormitory?" Then everyone noticed that the troll was simply standing there, not attacking, its eyes still fixed on Harry. "Potter," Snape said slowly. "What did you do to the troll?" Harry thought quickly. He couldn't reveal he could speak troll. I just stood still. I read somewhere that trolls are attracted to movement. If you stay still, they get confused." Snape's eyes narrowed suspiciously, but before he could question further, McGonagall spoke. "Be that as it may, what are you three doing here in the first place?" Now Ron and Hermione spoke up, explaining how they'd come looking for Hermione because she didn't know about the troll. Hermione took the blame for being in the bathroom in the first place, claiming she'd thought she could handle the troll because she'd read about them. McGonagall took 5 points from Gryffindor for Hermione's supposed foolishness but awarded 5 points each to Harry and Ron for sheer dumb luck. She then instructed them to return to Gryffindor Tower while the teachers dealt with the troll. As they left, Harry glanced back to see Snape eyeing him with intense suspicion. The troll was now sitting docilely on the bathroom floor as Quirrell attempted to put binding spells on it. They didn't speak at all until they had climbed 2 floors up. It was a relief to be away from the smell of the troll, quite apart from anything else. "Thanks for coming to look for me," Hermione said in a small voice. "No problem," Ron replied awkwardly. "But what did you do, Harry? It looked like the troll understood you." Harry shrugged. "Just lucky, I guess. Maybe it was confused by there being 3 of us." Hermione gave him a searching look but didn't press the issue. From that moment on, however, she became their friend. There are some things you can't share without ending up liking each other, and knocking out a 12-foot mountain troll, or in this case, somehow communicating with one, is one of them. The troll incident marked a turning point. With Hermione now part of their group, Harry found himself with a loyal circle of friends. Hermione's intelligence complemented Ron's strategic thinking and Harry's intuitive forest knowledge, making them a formidable team. As November arrived, the weather turned very cold. The mountains around the school became icy gray and the lake like chilled steel. Every morning the ground was covered in frost. Hagrid could be seen from the upstairs windows defrosting broomsticks on the Quidditch field, bundled up in a long moleskin overcoat, rabbit fur gloves, and enormous beaver skin boots. The Quidditch season had begun. On Saturday, Harry would be playing in his first match after making the Gryffindor team as Seeker, the youngest house player in a century. Only a few people had seen him play, as Wood, the team captain, had decided that Harry would be their secret weapon. The news that Harry was playing Seeker had leaked out somehow. Harry suspected the Weasley twins, and people kept telling him he'd be brilliant or that they'd be running underneath him holding a mattress. Harry found the attention uncomfortable but was genuinely excited about the match. Flying came naturally to him, perhaps because of his experience traveling the forest pathways in mist form. The day before Harry's first Quidditch match, the three of them were out in the freezing courtyard during break, and Hermione had conjured them up a bright blue fire that could be carried around in a jam jar. They were standing with their backs to it, getting warm, when Snape crossed the yard. Harry noticed at once that Snape was limping. The three of them moved closer together to block the fire from view. They were sure it wouldn't be allowed. Unfortunately, something about their guilty faces caught Snape's eye. He limped over. "What's that you've got there, Potter?" Harry showed him a library book Hermione had lent him, Quidditch Through the Ages. "Library books are not to be taken outside the school," said Snape. "Give it to me." 5 points from Gryffindor. "He's just made that rule up," Harry muttered angrily as Snape limped away. "Wonder what's wrong with his leg." "Dunno, but I hope it's really hurting him," said Ron bitterly. Later that evening, Harry decided to ask Snape for the book back. Steeling his courage, he headed to the staff room and knocked. There was no answer. He knocked again. Nothing. Perhaps Snape had left the book inside. Harry pushed the door ajar and peered inside, and a horrible scene met his eyes. Snape and Filch were inside, alone. Snape was holding his robes above his knees. One of his legs was bloody and mangled. Filch was handing Snape bandages. "Blasted thing," Snape was saying. "How are you supposed to keep your eyes on all three heads at once?" Harry tried to shut the door quietly, but, "Potter." Snape's face was twisted with fury as he dropped his robes quickly to hide his leg. Harry gulped. "I just wondered if I could have my book back." "Get out." "Out." Harry left, before Snape could take any more points from Gryffindor. He sprinted back upstairs. "Did you get it?" Ron asked as Harry rejoined them. "What's the matter?" In a low whisper, Harry told them what he'd seen. "You know what this means?" he finished breathlessly. "He tried to get past that three-headed dog at Halloween. That's where he was going when we saw him. He's after whatever it's guarding." "The package from Vault 713. Hermione whispered. Harry nodded, then froze. "Wait, how do you know about the three-headed dog?" Hermione looked surprised. "Everyone knows about it." "Well, everyone who's read Hogwarts, A History. It mentions that Headmaster Sylvester brought a Cerberus to guard a chamber centuries ago. The third-floor corridor is off-limits this year, so I assumed." Harry and Ron exchanged glances. Neither had made the connection. "But what's it guarding?" Ron wondered. "Something valuable, or dangerous," Harry mused. "Or both." That night, as his dormmates slept, Harry slipped into the forest again, seeking advice from the centaurs. They listened gravely to his story. A Cerberus guards a treasure, while a shadow hunts unicorns, Remus noted. These events are connected, young Potter. The stars speak of a darkness attempting to return. Voldemort? Harry asked quietly. We do not speak that name, Remus replied. But yes, the broken one seeks to become whole. The unicorn blood sustains him temporarily, but what lies beneath the trapdoor could restore him fully. The Philosopher's Stone, came a new voice. An ancient female centaur with silver-white hair stepped into the clearing. That is what the Cerberus guards. The Philosopher's Stone? Harry repeated. What does it do? It transforms any metal into pure gold and produces the elixir of life, which makes the drinker immortal, the elderly centaur explained. Created by Nicholas Flamel, the only known maker of such a stone. If the broken one obtains it, he'll come back, Harry whispered. But who's helping him? Snape. The centaurs looked to the stars. The one who serves two masters, the elderly centaur said cryptically. Look beneath the obvious, forest child. The next morning dawned very bright and cold. The great hall was full of the delicious smell of fried sausages and the cheerful chatter of everyone looking forward to a good Quidditch match. You've got to eat some breakfast, Hermione insisted. I don't want anything. Just a bit of toast, she wheedled. I'm not hungry. Harry felt terrible. In an hour's time, he'd be walking onto the field. Harry, you need your strength, said Seamus Finnegan. Seekers are always the ones who get clobbered by the other team. Thanks, Seamus, said Harry, watching Seamus pile ketchup on his sausages. By 11 o'clock, the whole school seemed to be out in the stands around the Quidditch pitch. Many students had binoculars. The seats might be raised high in the air, but it was still difficult to see what was going on sometimes. Ron and Hermione joined Neville, Seamus, and Dean up in the top row. As a surprise for Harry, they had painted a large banner on a sheet Scabbers had ruined. It said Potter for President, and Dean, who was good at drawing, had done a large Gryffindor lion underneath. Then Hermione had performed a tricky little charm so that the paint flashed different colors. Meanwhile, in the locker room, Harry and the rest of the team were changing into their scarlet Quidditch robes. Wood cleared his throat for silence. Okay, men, he said. And women, said Chaser Angelina Johnson. And women, Wood agreed. This is it. The big one, said Fred Weasley. The one we've all been waiting for, said George. We know Oliver's speech by heart, Fred told Harry, we were on the team last year. Shut up, you two, said Wood. This is the best. Something went wrong with this response, please try again. Bring the next chapter to continue. Chapter 3, Champion of Two Realms. Time jump to Harry's third year. Increasing ministry presence at Hogwarts due to concerns about Harry. Umbridge arriving to investigate rumors about Harry's abilities. Forest creatures warning Harry about a coming threat. Harry teaching friends about forest magic while learning conventional magic from them. Conflict erupting when Umbridge attempts to restrict the Forbidden Forest. Harry rallying both students and forest creatures against Umbridge. A climactic battle where Harry must fully embrace his role as Forest Champion. Resolution that establishes Harry as a bridge between the human and creature worlds. Epilogue showing the beginning of broader changes in wizard-creature relations. This outline provides a solid foundation for the three-chapter structure the person requested, with each chapter focusing on different aspects of Harry's journey while maintaining cohesive character development and escalating conflicts. Now, I'll present this outline to the person and wait for their feedback before writing the actual chapters. When the Forbidden Forest chose Harry, story outline. Overall plot. This reimagined Harry Potter story begins when 4-year-old Harry Potter, desperate to escape the Dursleys' abuse during a rare countryside trip, flees into what appears to be an ordinary forest. This forest, however, contains an ancient magical nexus connecting to the Forbidden Forest at Hogwarts. The primordial magic within recognizes something extraordinary in Harry, perhaps his unique survival of the killing curse, his pure heart despite mistreatment, or a latent connection to wild magic. The forest itself, as a semi-sentient entity, chooses Harry as its champion, and the magical creatures within sense this bond and pledge their loyalty. From ages 4 to 11, Harry lives a double life, reluctantly returning to the Dursleys when necessary, maintaining the blood protection, but spending every possible moment in the forest. He's mentored by centaurs in astronomy and prophecy, learns potion ingredients from unicorns, studies hunting from acromantulas, and absorbs ancient knowledge from beings the Ministry classifies as dangerous. Harry develops abilities beyond conventional wizardry, communicating with all creatures, not just snakes, performing intuitive wandless magic, and tapping into the forest's primordial energies. When Harry arrives at Hogwarts, he's wildly different from canon, powerful in nature magic but unfamiliar with standard spells, loyal to creatures most wizards fear, and connected to the Forbidden Forest in ways that both fascinate and alarm the faculty. As the story progresses, Harry must navigate school politics, protect his forest family from increasing threats, and confront Dolores Umbridge, whose hatred of half-breeds extends to anyone who champions them. Character arcs Harry Potter. Harry transforms from a frightened, lonely child to a confident protector straddling two worlds. His magic develops unconventionally, weaker in classroom spells but extraordinarily powerful in creature communication, wandless magic, and nature-based abilities. His moral compass is shaped by centaur philosophy and the harsh but fair laws of the forest rather than purely human ethics. Harry struggles to reconcile his forest upbringing with Hogwarts expectations and battles against wizarding prejudices toward his creature family. Hermione Granger. Initially skeptical of Harry's unorthodox knowledge, Hermione evolves from a strictly book-taught witch to someone who recognizes the limitations of ministry-approved education. She becomes the bridge helping translate Harry's forest knowledge into academic terms and vice versa, growing into an advocate for creature rights with first-hand understanding rather than just theoretical compassion. Ron Weasley. Ron begins with typical wizard prejudices about dangerous creatures, then gradually comes to respect the forest beings through Harry's influence. His strategic mind proves valuable when Harry faces challenges requiring both forest wisdom and wizard strategy. Ron struggles with jealousy over Harry's special abilities but ultimately finds his role as the tactical mind in their trio. Albus Dumbledore. Initially alarmed by Harry's unusual development, Dumbledore moves from trying to control Harry's education to recognizing the value in his unique upbringing. He becomes both an ally in protecting the forest and a gentle guide helping Harry navigate the human wizard world, while respecting the centaurs and other beings who have shaped Harry's childhood. Dolores Umbridge. The primary antagonist represents the Ministry's fear of wild magic and half-breeds. Her campaign to regulate all magical education and classify creatures threatens everything Harry loves. Her hatred stems from genuine belief that only human magic should exist, making her dangerous precisely because she believes she's protecting the wizarding world. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.